coffee and then.
Yes.
Just
Well, I actually have it here. I'm just going to sip it.
all right, good. Yeah, maybe I should go and get something.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Yeah,
Good to
good.
see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
People start coming in. Orvin, so I see you can share. Do you want to just share your screen when we start up?
Orvin, you're on mute.
Yeah, I know.
Or do you want me to project it?
You can project it. That's fine if you want to.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll just do a brief introduction and then I'll project. You can start off. And then I think the next one online is Pauline. And she said she'd project hers. So some of the people will project and some won't. And so they'll just tell me. And we are recording, I see already. Okay. And just a few more minutes. We're starting to get people in. So now we have 20. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon or evening, wherever you
Morning.
are.
Good afternoon.
Move over that way.
Let's see.
Oh,
there
there
we are.
there
Now
we
you
go.
can see, sort of. Half of it.
Let's see. I go to the left. I go to the left. Do it this
It's
way.
a mirror image.
Mirror image.
I love the old-fashioned tape recorder you have in the background.
Yeah. Somebody already commented on that. Love that boom box, and yeah, I think it is a 1980s relic.
Yeah. And actually, we've been on some meetings where somebody portrayed a picture of about 100 rolls of toilet paper on the back of their screen.
Oh no.
They said they were ready. So I hope you all are healthy and doing okay.
So, good morning.
Good morning, Heidi.
Good morning.
Oh, you have is that sunshine or just light in your office?
Sunshine, it's so nice.
Oh, good.
Since
Good.
more than a week now. No
Yeah.
rain at all.
Good. And the title, and your title, by the way, is on the updated.
Thank you. Otherwise,
that's-
maybe my partners will kill me. In,
Yes.
Switzerland.
Yes. So that's and it's updated in the Dropbox too.
Oh, spasiba.
All right. So this is if I could get rid of. Let's see, turn this off just a minute. So can you all see the agenda now?
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Well, by the end of this, we'll all be Zoom experts.
But it works surprisingly well, so I'm very happy.
Yeah. Is this the right up here?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock here.
No, 7:59 here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll wait one more minute and then we can start this up.
Oh.
I guess we could start, huh?
Yeah. How many people have we got on?
I don't see it on here yet.
Oh, if you pull out and look at the
38 right now.
Okay.
38. Okay.
Okay. So mute. So you can all hear me. So welcome to the Synoptic Survey workshop. And we're going to be discussing the planned activities for the 2020-2021. I wanted to start off just as a brief introduction. I think everybody knows I'm Jackie Grebmeyer, and I'm on the US and the International Steering Committees for the SAS. And I wanted to introduce our two hosts. There's Tori Liu from, I believe, for Canada, correct? So
No, she's Noah.
Noah, sorry. And That's all right. Hi, Tori. And then Sophia Umpton. So maybe you could start, Tori, just say any logistical information you have and maybe an introduction, what you do, just brief.
Sure, thanks. So I think logistics were okay. Sophia will give a quick introduction about chat, about like the way that the chat is going to work and how the monitoring is and how you guys have entered. We are recording this session, so it'll be made available online afterwards. I am finishing my PhD at Princeton.
No voice.
Okay. Sorry, can you guys hear okay? Was that a comment?
Yes, we can. There's just some background noise.
Okay. And I am doing a Knauss Marine Policy Fellowship at NOAA this year, where the Arctic is in my portfolio.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your assistance. And then Sophia, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. So the main thing that everyone needs to know is that your audio should be on mute at all times except during the question time period so that we don't have an issue with background sounds. So the easiest way to mute if you're currently on a phone is to do *6 if there isn't a dedicated mute button. And please, if you're using both a computer and a phone, make sure to use headphones in order to stop any echo when you're asking questions. So there are several tools you can use. So we have the raise hand tool, which will allow you to raise your hand to say whether or not you would like to ask a question. And there's also the ability to discuss in the chat itself. So you can type questions out if you're not wanting to say them aloud, or if you would like to bring yourself forward for a question. And this presentation is being recorded.
All right. Thank you so much for both of your assistance and for the description. So we'll go ahead and get started. And the first speaker will be Orvin Pash, and I'm going to bring up his PowerPoint, and he'll be speaking about an introduction to the Synoptic Arctic Survey. So I'm going to stop share here and get to minimize that. Posh.
Yeah, you might have to go back and hit share again.
Okay, where's that? Here?
Share screen. And then you should see his.
It does.
There it is.
Hit share?
Yeah.
Okay, can you all see this? Perfect. I'm going to put it in screen slideshow mode, and Orvin, you're on.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. And thank you for inviting me to give this update, I guess, on the Synoptic Arctic Survey. Many of you know a lot of the things that I'm going to sort of outline in the talk. Some of you may not know it that well, so bear over with me. I think it's in some sense kind of funny that when we started working on this initiative some 5 years ago or something, 6 years ago, we had this idea that we wanted it to be like the centenary for the MOD expedition into the Arctic, where Harald Sverdrup played a key role, the oceanographer. And the funny thing was that the MOD expedition lasted from 1918 to 1925. And so that gave us, you know, quite a few big error bars in terms of when SAS should be. So initially we were planning on 1918, 1919, and then it became 1920, and now we're in, 2020, and now we're in 2020. And also because of the COVID-19, the virus, I guess some of those cruises will perhaps be delayed for 1 year. And so we'll see how that develops. I guess given the outline of the talk, we will get presentations from the different countries, which will be nice. And so what I will do is basically just give you a little rundown on activity the last year and also some planned activity in the coming decade. But just to remind you, so if you flip to the next slide, Jackie. SAS is a bottom-up research-driven initiative. It approaches the Arctic in a way that not a single country can do. So a single country can always try to solve some questions that perhaps is within their economical zone or within their coastal areas or whatever. But what we try to do is approach the Arctic in a synoptic way, and then asking questions that we need all the countries involved in the SAS to contribute to. And so the idea is to generate a huge comprehensive data set that allows for a better description of the Arctic and the Arctic Ocean in terms of hydrography, in terms of carbon, in terms of acidification, ecosystems, and so forth. And generally the idea is that this will make up a baseline, maybe, in lack of a better word, a baseline which we can compare and track changes into the future. And I'll also get back, touch on this at the very end of my talk, that this is the first SAS, but we're hoping also to arrange for an SAS in 2030, which will be 10 years down the line. And SAS, as Jackie mentioned earlier, it has a scientific steering committee, which was established in 2018 in November. And I am the chair of that committee. Next. And so some of the activities, we spent a little bit of time on trying to summarize the initiative and provide an updated view of what we've done and what we're planning to do. And this was published in a paper in EOS in November, December last year. And it is open access, so it's available to everyone. And I urge the ones who haven't read it to read it and also to share it with others in the community. I think it gave us a nice way of informing others, agencies, funding agencies, politicians, and so forth about what we're doing. And then secondly, I also want to remind people that we have a very comprehensive science plan, which we worked very hard to produce. And that science plan is available on the SAS homepage. And I added a link here. Then we've had a few workshops, and I think, Jackie, you're going to talk more about these in the following sessions, but I was present at both. But it was a large international workshop at Woodsole last year in May, and also a US workshop back to back with that workshop. But I guess you will present more of that in the following, Jackie. Next. So we've been working on trying to use the international meetings as a platform where we can bring people together. We organized a meeting in San Francisco in December. This was not a very big meeting, but it was a meeting that drew quite some people from the US side, so National Science Foundation, ONR, NOAA, and so forth, and also some international representatives. The head of IS was there, Gyre from Jamstek was there, myself, and also Karen was one of the organizers of the meeting, and whom I believe is on Mosaic now. Is that correct? Or yes, I guess it is. And so we got some feedback from the US side, and I guess Jackie will also touch more upon this in the following. But the big event for SAS really this spring or this semester was the ISAR-6 meeting, which was scheduled to be in Tokyo in March. And we had devoted quite some time to this. We were planning for a meeting. There was a keynote. We had a reception at the ambassador's residence and so forth. And then sadly, but wisely, the Japanese colleagues had to cancel ISAR-6, although there's been some activity on the web. And so, of course, our sympathy goes out with goes to the Japanese organizers, but it was also a little bit of a setback for us because we had quite a few issues that we wanted to address on that meeting. And so this is something that we now need to have as a webinar, which is, of course, not the same as a meeting, a real meeting with people. And so we'll see how we can solve this. I think one of the good news is that the University of Bergen has decided to support SAS, which will allow us to hire an international secretary. And I should say here that if you have candidates that could be eligible for this position, I need those names very fast. So you can send them to me and Are Olsen, which is probably also attending this meeting. And we need it by this week. So no later than Friday, actually. Sorry for the short notice. We've been in the process of hiring actually 2 persons before, and for various reasons this hasn't gone through. So we have 1 candidate now, but if you have any other suggestions, then please forward it to me. I think this will be very important for SAS because we need that extra manpower. And in that funding from the University of Bergen, there is also support for at least 2 international workshops. Initially, we had planned for 1 in Bergen this spring. That's not going to happen. And we had also planned for 1 workshop in the fall, and most likely that is not going to happen too. I suspect that there will be travel bans for most countries probably out the year, and so planning for meetings even in the fall I don't foresee as really. So we have to do that as a webinar too. But this person, which we hopefully will hire, will then serve the SAS initiative. It will serve the scientific steering committee, and it can also represent SAS and do outreach. So we really hope we can get that person in place very soon. Next. And so some feedback that has been channeled from, among others, Sten-Åke from Sweden, is that we need to develop a protocol with respect to biological measurements, specifically measurements relating to the marine ecosystem, so to speak, because the protocol for doing measurements for both the physical oceanography, but also the chemistry is, I think, outlined through GoShip, and they have their protocols in place, but we need probably a SAS protocol for the bioparameters. And so I will follow this. Maybe we can discuss this perhaps at the end of the meeting, Jackie. But I'm happy to contribute and try to organize such a workshop / webinar, and then also we should get something in writing that can be shared with the different partners. This is a little bit urgent, so we need to be fast about this. And of course, just to remind you, I mean, if you have ideas for webinars or workshops, this doesn't necessarily have to go through the scientific steering committee, but I'm very pleased that I'm being informed, and the rest of the SSC is also informed, but initiatives can come from other places. Secondly, we've been invited and accepted an innovation in Arctic Passion. It's an EU proposal. It is headed by Mikael Kerchner, whom probably many know, who is at AVI, and also others have been, a lot of people have been involved in this. It is a proposal that addresses mainly observation systems and how we can handle data and how data can be made available for stakeholders and policymakers. There's also some new science in that proposal. It has gone through, it is in stage 1 now, so we'll see if we can move on to stage 2. I take this opportunity and also refer to this because I think it's very wise if we can find places for SAS in proposals going into national agencies. And so if someone of you have any ideas in terms of how to involve SAS on some level, we're much welcome. That's much welcomed, and we're happy to discuss that. So we have these 2 planned international workshops that we need to do as webinars. The dates aren't set, and this is something that the Scientific Steering Committee will have to discuss, and we will then invite people following that. Next. And then finally, I want to sort of reiterate this, that there is a huge initiative called Decade of Ocean Science. And this is a UN initiative, IOC. The plan is that it should be launched in 2021 during first half. I believe the plan was to launch it in Berlin. Not sure how that's going to play down now, but anyway, it's supposed to run from 2021 to 2030. And I think there could be some nice synergy between Decade of Ocean Science and SAS, especially if we plan for an second SAS in 2030. So you would have sort of the culmination of the Decade of Ocean Science with the second SAS. So that's something we need to start working on as well. I've approached IOC just recently, so that dialogue is to be started. But I think that is a wise way forward. And I have a few more slides, Jackie, but I feel like most of the people in this room are aware of the scientific questions that relate to the SAS, and also cruises, which is now going to be presented by the different countries. So I think actually I'm going to end there.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and does anybody have any questions while we the next speaker will share their screen, so I'll unshare this. If anybody has anything they want to ask Orvin, this is the time to do it. Thanks. Okay. Hello?
Hello? I've raised my hand.
Okay, go ahead.
So the Maud expedition was probably the very first time that anyone took any profile measurements of the atmosphere. When the SAS cross-cutting proposal for IAS was discussed in Switzerland almost 2 years ago, Jackie, I asked you whether there were any plans for involving atmospheric measurements as part of SAS. It could easily be an opportunity to very easily do very nice atmospheric measurements without very much extra effort. So I'm wondering where that issue is lying now and how that has worked out.
Sure, thank you. Yes, and actually you'll see it in my US presentation. It came up as an added factor in the planning that we put forward. So you'll see that as one of the essential variables listed for the discussions we had. I think it was back in Switzerland and then continued on. So yes, that was duly noted and brought forward as atmospheric measurements as being added to the opportunities and recommendations for the various ships. And I know that we put that in our US proposal, but I think others are too. And Orvin, do you have anything to add to that?
No, not really. I mean, we've been positive towards including atmospheric science in the different initiatives, but it's not been the main focus, of course. But we have been open for it, and therefore, you know, in terms of national countries doing their science, since there isn't really like one organized funding pot where you could apply to do stuff, then you need to do that through your different nations. Yeah.
Right, and I would add, I think as we develop in the opportunities for cross-platform on these vessels, those discussions will continue going forward. So
Yeah,
I hope that answers the question.
I'm glad to hear that. I know the Swedish expedition plan for SAS does have an atmospheric component. Right. I'm glad to hear US has it also. And I'd like to hear from all the others where as the presentations come here, if there is any such thing going on. I realized it can never be the central item on the SAS agenda, but it's such a wonderful opportunity to really do something great here, and I would hate to see it just go by.
Yes, noted. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. So right now we'll move on then to, and if there are any other questions come up, put them in the chat and we'll bring them up in the discussion section, if not after each speaker. So on this one, Pauline, is going to present on the Swedish contribution to SAS. And I believe, Pauline, you're going to share your presentation, or do you want me to run it?
Actually, Maria is starting and I will take over. So we are going to do something very advanced here.
Excellent, thank you. We like other people taking it on. Okay, you're up.
Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Great. So my name is Maria Samuelsson, and I'm a research support coordinator at the Swedish Polar Research Secretariat. So, so this presentation is the Swedish contribution to SAS. And I will present some information about the logistics and infrastructure, and then our chief scientist, Pauline, will present our science program. And I also think Sten-Åke Wängberg is joining the meeting today, and he's the Swedish representative in the SAS steering committee. Let me see if I can change here. Yes, just a few words about the Swedish Polar Research Secretariat. As it says, we are a governmental agency, and we are mandated to coordinate and promote Swedish polar research. And our primary mission is to organize and support a research expedition to polar regions, and also manage the infrastructure for research. And very short, so the infrastructure, I mean, I guess you're most interested in the icebreaker Oden, which we provide for the Swedish SAS survey, the expedition, but we also have a research station in the Swedish mountain, AON-BGOS, and also 2 stations in Antarctica. So this is the tentative timetable for Oden this summer, but due to the COVID-19 situation, it's very likely that this timetable will be changed. The initial plan was to have mobilization for SAS in May in Sweden, and then leave to support expeditions to Polarstern, the Mosaic project, and after that do the SAS expedition from 1st of August to 15th of September. But we will see. As I said, it's very tentative, and right now there are lots of discussions going on, so we don't really know how this will look like. But this is the sampling area. It's a little bit different from the picture, the latest picture I saw in the report from Woods Hole, I think. We had to rewrite it a little bit, but this is the main target area with the legs, eight legs. And Pauline will get back to you and tell you more about the scientific program, but we will include lots of CTDs, multi-net, ring net for fishing, and bongo nets, different ice stations, and also some box coring. And there will also be on-deck incubations, and we have the flow water systems in the labs, acoustics, and yes, different different projects. And there are in total 16 granted research projects going on the SAS on Oden, and yeah, you can see them here. And as I said, Pauline will talk more about them later. And I just want to say that 3 of them are so-called ARISE projects, that is the Arctic Research Icebreaker Consortium with the European Polar Board. So, but in total it's 16 projects, and 39 different scientists will join the cruise. Yes, I think, Pauline, do you want to share yourself, or do you want to use my sharing? Pauline?
Pauline, I think you're still muted.
Yes, sorry. I can make, if you unshare the screen, I can start sharing mine.
Yeah, and if you have any questions for me, we can take them after Pauline's presentation.
Great.
Okay, now I share my screen. Share, and we go to this one. So I start where Maria ended with the SAS-Oden the SAS-Oden science. And this is very short about the core parameters, the coordination and some challenges there, and that we need standard operation protocols, what Ewind already was talking about, and we need them very fast because we are already buying everything we need. There is, as I said, some challenge in SAS when it comes to getting research money in Sweden for research projects, because in a research project, a research council wants exciting scientific hypotheses, and this is often more experimental than field sampling. So, for example, a long time series of chlorophyll A doesn't score that high as a scientific hypothesis, even if it is very, very important. And in SAS, we have a higher cause in driving science forward by collecting data for modeling, to get an overview, and to connect the shelf seas with the Central Arctic Ocean. So there are many, many big advantages of SAS, but it's very difficult for single research groups to get funding. And then we get this vicious cycle. If you don't have funding, you don't get a place on the Oden. So there we have then a small contradictory between measuring all the SAS core parameters and the available berths on Oden. But we have, I think, found very good solutions to this, and the major thing is that we have excellent coordination by the Swedish Polar Research Secretariat. And so all the people who participate in the expedition, they know already that they have to contribute something to SAS, even if it is operating the CTD or taking nets or doing things for the general cause. And what we have is a scope of work that Maria started. And this is a living document. It has something about the general organization, the ship's resources, but also short descriptions of all the projects, and that's very important. And that I learned being on Mosaic, which was quite chaotic. There had been no information. You didn't know about the other projects, basically. At least not officially. We've been talking and talking and talking, but nothing on paper, really nothing. And that's very frustrating. But in Sweden, we did it the other way around. And this is it's a standard procedure of the Swedish Polar Research Secretariat. And I'm so grateful for this. It also makes scientists already in an early stage say what project needs they have, and then they can in many cases get it. Maybe some new equipment needs to be bought, and that we partly can also get from the Swedish Polar Secretariat. The scope of work is iterating and iterating until it's ready, and then it is our cruise program. Yeah, the next. Okay. Where am I? Yeah. So these are the SAS Core parameters that we discussed and that we plan to measure. And most of these we measure both in the water column and in the sea ice habitats. And that means ponds and ice water interface and things like that also, not only the ice cores. And there we still have very few protocols. And these we are going to write in the coming weeks, and we really need input from other SAS participants in this, because we are going, we need to buy the things now, and we're going relatively fast if we go this year. Then you see here the blue parameters, those we can control, and we have a central program for that. And the yellow ones we also control, because those are the ones that we added. These are not in the international SAS program, but either they happen to be parts of projects. This is, I hope, an intuitive, an easy overview of how the projects work. Some projects are completely inside the SAS parameters. Other projects, they have perhaps partly field measurements, and then they have a part that is experimental incubations, for example. So together we collect this, and no project is outside of these SAS core parameters. So this is how we managed to integrate. And well, the big test comes, of course, when we are on board and have to do all of this. But I think we are a very good group already, and we have, many of us have known each other for our whole professional lives, and I think we will manage to do this. Then I have one example, because there were 7 projects that wanted to work with DNA and RNA. And then we said, well, we cannot take 36 liters of water for 7 projects, and then everybody's going to sequence them, and then everybody's going to have their own bioinformatics. So this is the ultimate example of cooperation as we see it within the SAS expedition. And we all work together on sampling the water, the ice cores, etc. We bring home 400 to 500 omics samples. We extract them in one and the same laboratory. And then we have a collective research application for sequencing. You cannot do that before you go out and sample. You have to do it when you have the samples, when you can guarantee that you have the correct amount of DNA that is necessary. And then we also do collective bioinformatics and make one large publication with a lot of authors about the microbial community composition. But then we have our big data set, and in there everybody can go and dig themselves for their own processes they want to study, or if you want to study a specific group of organisms, or if you want to go further in some ecological process like nitrogen uptake or things like that. And then we have also these experimental incubations who are coupled to these field samples for the omics, and that falls within each project then, but it will also give good information about processes that happen. Then my final slide is about that for the water column, the SAS parameters are well defined. And for the chemistry, there is already a handbook. But for biology, we have to make this. And for the ice sampling, we also have to make this. And it is now really time to start with this. So we need to have a workshop very fast. And then I hope we make it to the North Pole this year, otherwise next year. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Pauline, for an excellent talk. Would anybody like to ask her questions? If you could go ahead and unshare, we'll move on to the other talk. But in the meantime, are there questions for Pauline? And Maria. If you don't come up with any questions, you can put them in the chat box, or we can have it at the part of the discussion section. Any last questions? Okay, Pauline, if you would, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just wanting to flag that Vito Vitali might have had a question in the last presentation. If you would like to speak up now.
Was a general comment I can make during the discussion, and it's much better for the general discussion now. But I agree with Michael, then absolutely we need to improve the atmosphere. But I was in Archangelsk and we talk a lot about that.
Yes.
Now we have also a new ship, and so we hope in the future we can participate. But for the general discussion, I can talk more.
Excellent, thank you. So why don't we go ahead, Pauline, if you, I don't know if you've shared yet, and you have. And Heidi Marie will give the next presentation, because she also will, she'll have to take off for the ICERA meeting, but hopefully she'll be done. So you ready to go, Heidi? And she'll talk about
just give me 1 minute, please.
She's going to talk about the Arctic Century International Expedition on the academic Trishnikov.
Right, Trishnikov.
Okay, perfect. So
I would like to give a short overview about a contribution which might come from Switzerland, Russia, and Germany. That's an international expedition on the research icebreaker Academic Trishnikov. And you can see it here on the photo. It was a photo we have done last year in the ice close to Franz Josef Land.
Heidi, your screen is not shared yet.
Ow, that's not good.
I have your talk if you want me to bring it up.
Why is it not shared now? Wait a minute. I don't know. It's not working right now.
Okay, let me see if I can pull it up. I'll go ahead and try to share it.
Wait, maybe now.
Okay. There you go.
There was
Perfect.
something wrong, so.
There you go. Now you want to go back to the first slide.
Yeah, so that you can see the ship at least. So sorry for that. Not really organized here in Germany. So that's the Academic Trishnikov. So that's this is a short overview now. So we are doing this expedition to mark the 100th anniversary of the Arctic and Antarctic Research Institute in St. Petersburg, the ARI. And it's a collaborative initiative involving ARI, GEOMAR, ARVI, and the Swiss Polar Institute. So we have a terrestrial and a marine working program. And we are doing, or we are trying to make a cooperation with international initiatives and projects such as SAS, T-Mosaic, and this is a Russian-German project, the Changing Arctic Transpolar System. So all in all, it will be an expedition 30 days, and we are planning to go to the Kara Sea. So this is our working area. So the expedition will start in Murmansk, and it's planned that we will start on the 15th of August. So then we will sail along Novaya Zemlya. We will work here. It's the northern tip of Novaya Zemlya. So there's also some terrestrial work planned. So, and then we will work here in the San Ana Trough region. We will cross 4 times the continental slope to study the Arctic boundary current in particular. And I guess for SAS interest is the San Ana Trough. And then we will work here on Severnaya Zemlya and here in this region. And we are planning to do also some ice drilling. And then we will return to Murmansk. So mobilization will be in Kiel. So all the participants will bring their cargo to Kiel, and the ship will come to Kiel. It's planned for the beginning of July, so that we can do the loading as well as the unloading in Kiel. So also good for our samples to transfer them directly to the international partners. So right now we are 62 participants, and I hope very much that we will be able to carry out this expedition. So just to give you an update on this as well, this morning I talked to the director of the ARI, Alexander Makarov, and he told me that they are still planning to do all expeditions. They will not cancel. So Rospitomet has no plans to cancel any expedition. I guess there are a couple of reasons. They are also supporting here the polar station, for instance, Baranov, and they have to go there. So that's all from my side, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Heidi, and that's great news about the cruise going forward. Does anybody have any questions for Heidi at this time? If not, you can put them in the chat box, except she's leaving in the next 15 minutes. So if you do, if she's gone, you have a question, we'll come back. Yes, Pauline.
Yeah, I don't know where I can find the hand here, but this is my hand. Since you're leaving, Heidi, I would like to ask how many of the SAS Core parameters are you going to measure?
So, well, as for the biological part, I mean, Jackie can answer this because she's in contact with the head of the biological group, Vasily Puvashny. I guess you talked already, Jackie. No? You know it better than me what is planned for the biology. So, and in addition, we are planning oceanography, marine chemistry, and we are also planning some meteorological work so that we will also study the atmosphere. And we will take seafloor samples. So I myself, I'm responsible also for the seafloor samples. So at least we are planning 10 stations, not more, because we will not have the time. So it's a short expedition, only 3 weeks. So that's, and we will have helicopters on board to work also on the islands. Quite a lot of logistics.
Right, and one thing I would add is I think it just came to me, I think I will put together a matrix of some standard SAS measurement cruises and then send it out to the leads and they can click off what they're doing and we can build it kind of like a heat map. And where we know, that'll help also with if there are any extra berth spaces, then how they might help. Too. Yeah.
So as for now, we are using the protocol, at least for the biology from Mosaic, or we're trying to use this.
Yes, we too, but they are, many of them are not well described yet.
Oh. Okay, yeah, but really also Jackie is involved in this program as well, and I very much hope that you will support us, Jackie. We need you.
Yes, I know. And I same thing with Pauline and Maria is that we do have
please
for the benthic work, and I'm happy to see
I'm very open and happy if you can support and help us because we are not so experienced in detail and in all these things. So we like to learn.
But a simple thing like chlorophyll A, there are 4 different solvents discussed right now. And there are international standards. When we came to Mosaic, there was no SOP, no standards taken with them. It was just something that I was astonished about, and we really need to do that very well for SAS because we are going to be many ships. So now it's time to make these things because the experts on each ship will make their own decisions like we did in Mosaic.
Right, and we did discuss this, Paula, at the workshop when I give my little talk, but it is something we were planning to have virtual meetings. I think this is the reason and time in our life virtual meetings are going to become what it is in the short term. So we could actually build some of those subgroups now to address what we said we would eventually do. So I think since the Oden and Heidi's and a few other cruises are going out, this is the time. And I'll just start the conversation going, and then we can go for that. Yeah. And so there's a question here from Atsetsu's, I forget, Canadian, about a timeline of bioprotocols, and I guess the timeline is yesterday. But I guess it's something we're going to need to do in the next couple of weeks. So maybe I'll just start an email string with the chief scientists on these cruises, and then they can have whoever it is, and we can just build a virtual side group to start doing that. For our purposes, you know, for when we went out on the Healy, we had standard protocols for water column, sediment, benthic sampling. And so I can start the conversation in a Dropbox.
Yeah, that is great, Jackie. Please do this because we need all a little bit advice and we need to do the same. Otherwise, it makes no sense at all.
Yeah, exactly.
No? Okay. Also, I would like to point out also the Russian side confirms that we will internationally share the data. This is really something very important, I guess. So we are working on this issue already since 2 months and they are quite open. Of course, we will not open all stations. It makes maybe no sense, but at least the Sun Anatraf profile would be of great interest for all of us.
All right. And I put it on my action item.
Please, and mark it in red.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I think at that, if there are other questions that come up, we can take them in the Zoom. Are there any more for Heidi though? Because she will be gone. No, oh, just a little bit though, not fully.
I have a question. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it would be great to measure ice thickness and waves height using AWOX, and also measure the water transport, volume transport across all the opening is possible.
So we will not have ice when we are going there. So that's already for sure. And of course, we will measure the the heights of the waves. So we have 6 oceanographers on board, and usually that's the routine, what they are doing every time.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay, I think what'll happen, Heidi, if there are any other questions related to your presentation, it'll come in the chat and I'll ask you post your CIRA meeting.
Yeah.
Then we can respond back to the group
Okay.
later.
Okay,
thank
you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, D-Share, and the next speaker is going to be Kumiko Azatsu Scott from Canada. So will you want to show your, Kumiko, do you want to show your screen? Can you pull it up or do you want me to?
I try to get my screen, but I'm not quite sure I can.
Oh, there you go. I see your face, but I think now that Heidi's de-shared, you probably could try to share it.
I de-shared everything.
Thank you, Heidi.
Just a minute.
Okay, we'll give you.
Can you see that?
Yes, it is. It's coming up now. There you are. Thank you. You can start.
All right. Okay, we'll do that. Canadian SAS. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we do.
Okay, so our SAS lines are based on actually ghost ship lines. One is a JOIS BGOS line in Beaufort Sea. This is a collaboration with Canada, US, and Japan. So all the ghost ship parameters are measured, and Bill will discuss about it a little later. Another one is Davis Strait, which is Greenland and between Greenland and Baffin Island. Again, this is a collaboration with Canada, US, and EU. And Canada mainly do chemistry and physics, and US does physics and higher trophic level oil, acoustic type of things. And EU, Denmark, and Greenland will do the biological oceanography. And this is a heavily equipped with mooring. So the fluxes will be a major issue. And on top of it, we have a national program at Beaufort Shelf and try to develop a very coastal site right now. So try to connect from the land to all the way to the deep basin. So this is the Davis Strait section. And this red area is a major line, but actually there is auxiliary lines, about 5 of them. So go into the Baffin Bay and go into the Labrador Sea. And this is one of the 2 export gateways of Arctic water. So other one is from Strait, and the other side of the Greenland is the Davis Strait. And we try to see that the propagation of Arctic to the North Atlantic, as well as Atlantic water going into the higher latitude through Davis Strait, and which influence the ice sheet in Greenland. So we actually have hydrographic stations as well as mooring line, so we can calculate the current field and the chemical field, and combine them, we can measure the flux. And we have a strong acidification program in this line, as well as we have a measurement of methane. And there is a lot of cold seeps along the Baffin Island shelves. So we have hot spots for methane release from the sediment too. And there are a lot of modeling efforts going on too. This is an example of nutrients flux, and there's a carbon issue too. So, and this line serves as a gateway between North Atlantic and Arctic. And Beaufort Sea, as I mentioned, there is several programs going on, and we try to coordinate and enhance the existing programs in Beaufort Sea from land to the deep ocean. And this is not just the Fisheries Oceans Canada program, but NRCan, Natural Resources Canada geology group working on this too. At the same time, there is a local communities in the Beaufort Game Council will be involved in too in coastal site. So this is a Beaufort coastal and shelf work. This white line is a Mackenzie outflow, and these purple dots are measured by CBS MIA, Canadian Beaufort Sea Marine Environment Analysis Program, which is Bill is involved in too in physics side. And mainly a Winnipeg lab in DFO, we work on biology and we work on chemistry. So we cover quite a lot of area in the shelf region. And this area, Taktiaktak, the red area, is very active erosion site. And some area, 40 meter a year, erosion is observed. So a lot of carbon coming into the sea from this area. So we tried to set up the station in Taktiaktak with the Inuit community there. I just came back from the Taktiaktak about 10 days ago and did the ice sampling, under ice sampling there, and tried to put it up the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network kit. It's going in a box to Taktiaktak to measure high temperature variation of acidification there, and try to connect with the shelf program and further out in Deep Ocean program by JOIS BGP. So this is the JOIS program. I think Bill will discuss about it a little further. So can you get that one, Bill?
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I can. Let me just start my video and share screen.
Good.
Go to presentation. So good morning again. It's a little early in British Columbia, Canada. This is the proposed cruise map for Joint Ocean Ice Studies 2020. This is a program that's collaborative with the NSF in the United States, and it's their Arctic Observing Network's Beaufort Gyre observing system. It's a standard cruise track. The program has been ongoing since 2003 annually, and this year we expect the cruise to be the 5th to the 30th of September. The blue dots on the map are our standard CTD stations. The pink stars in the north are ice-based observatories where ice-tethered profilers and seasonal ice mass balance buoys get deployed. And the red diamonds and squares are mooring recoveries and redeployments. And we are hoping for redeployments this year to continue the time series there. The program is currently funded for 2020, and we're awaiting decisions for beyond then. This is the ship that we use, the Canadian Coast Guard's Louis Saint Laurent, in the ice of the northern Beaufort Gyre. I usually say with this picture, please look at the large, smooth flows of ice. This is very different to 10 to 15 years ago. We have thin, young ice cover of the Beaufort Gyre, as I think we all know. The program has been continuing for a long time, and this shows a change in the section along 150 West, north of Alaska, from 2004 to 2019. And the Beaufort Gyre has spun up over this time period so that the water masses are pressed down as the fresh water has been forced into the center of the Beaufort Gyre by Egmont transport. In particular, it's easy to see that the Pacific winter water, this cold water here, with salinity about 33.1, is now quite a bit deeper. And if you plot the depth of that Pacific winter water, it used to be at around 150 meters deep in 2003 and is now at around 2010 meters deep. Sorry, 210 meters deep. The primary goal, I would say, of the mission is to quantify the freshwater in the Beaufort Gyre, since this is a globally significant accumulation of freshwater, which, if released, would impact the deep convection around Iceland and Greenland, and then impact the meridional overturning circulation. These are plots from Rick Critchfield. In 2018, the total freshwater content was 23.3 thousand kilometers cubed, and in 2019 it was 23.4 thousand kilometers cubed. And if you plot the freshwater over time, since 2003, there's a big increase here in the winter of 2007, and then it's been fairly constant with but including a decrease and then another increase up to 2019. And what are the components of that increase? The Pacific winter water has remained at fairly constant volume, but there's been a 40% increase in Pacific summer water. That's a flow out of the Chukchi Sea in summer, and a 55% in the surface waters, which contain the fresh river water that accumulates in the Beaufort Gyre. Recent results on the time series of ocean acidification. Since pre-industrial times, omega in the surface waters of the Beaufort Gyre has decreased, becoming corrosive to aragonite around 2006 and 7, and it has remained so since then. This is a paper by Yuanxing Zhang, and this is the DOI for that paper. It's a recent GRL. And they analyze the different contributions to this acidification signal. The atmospheric contribution here gradually increasing due to increased CO2. The disequilibrium between the atmosphere and the ocean, which has stabilized at about this value here. The increase in ocean temperature, increasing omega, and then the signal from multi-year ice melt, which was very strong in 2007 and has decreased since then. And so this pattern of multi-year ice melt, it's a one-time thing. The multi-year ice has left, and we won't see a contribution of ice melt to the Beaufort Gyre of this sort for some time, and the continued decrease of omega in the surface waters of the Beaufort Gyre is likely either due to greater river inputs and then due to this decrease in omega from CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere. Thank you. For inquiries, please contact me. We have a wide range of physical, biological, and geochemical measurements made on board, but I am open to further contributions, particularly for the Synoptic Arctic Survey, and we have room for a few people on board in addition, and we also have dedicated teams, watchers that are very good at taking samples for people, and that's been very successful in the past also. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. Can you send me that so I can, your presentation? I put it in the Dropbox when you're at your time.
Yes, I will do.
Thank you. Is there a question at all for Kamiko or Bill on this? I think we'll have you share your screen, Bill, so Shige can get his coming up. But in the meantime, are there any questions? If
I would like to add, but Canadian program has a strong component of modeling too, and satellite observatory for our program, for both programs. So that's not really SAS direct, but there is a support from modelers and the satellite oceanographers too.
That's great. You know, and I would say, does anybody has questions, they can add them to the chat. But if any, I'll just open it one more time. Is there another question? Otherwise, I think Shige's brought up. I want to thank you both. Great presentation. I would say, folks, that we do have two short ones added to the discussion. So just do what you're doing, but onwards we go. So Shige, you're up. Thank you. But I think you have to unmute. So we don't hear you, Shige.
Can you hear me?
We hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Shige Nishino from Jamstec, and I'll talk about the SAS Mirai 2020 cruise in the Western Arctic Ocean. So Synoptic Arctic Survey is a coordinated multi-ship, multi-nation pan-Arctic ship-based sampling campaign to be conducted in 2020 and 2021. In 2020, the research vessel Mirai will cover the Pacific sector of the Arctic Ocean. And this is a cruise plan of mainly focused on the research vessel Mirai indicated by blue lines. And red line indicates the cruise track of Saint Laurent, Canada, and yellow is a cruise track of around Korea. We will leave Shimizu, Japan on 29th August and arrive at Nome on 7th September and pass through the Bering Strait on 8th September and arrive at Barrow area on 11th September. And we will start the observation from here, including moorings and DBO5 lines. And we will complete the mission around here until the 15th September, not to disturb the whaling activity. Then we go into the Canada basin along the 150 degrees west line, and hopefully we meet with Saint Laurent at the ice edge. And we will have data comparison site here, and then we go along the ice edge, and we will have several ice edge stations and enter the Chukchi borderland area. And in this area, we will revisit the observation line conducted by the Korean icebreaker AON to capture the seasonal variation of water mass and its impact on marine ecosystem in this region. And then we go back to the Chukchi Sea and have a hydrographic survey, including DBO3 site, and arrived in Dutch Harbor on 11 October. And these are research themes of the cruise. The main mission is Synoptic Arctic Survey, and we will also have a sea trial in the Arctic Ocean for underwater smart drone. And we have 3 physical oceanographic studies on the air, sea, wave, ice interaction, ocean and sea ice dynamics, and eddies, gravity waves, and turbulent mixing. And we have 2 chemical oceanographic studies on the nitrogen cycling and methane and DMSP distribution. And we have 1 biological studies on the distribution of plankton community. And we have 3 atmospheric science on the trace gas, aerosol, greenhouse gases, and atmospheric water vapor. And Mirai creates a bridge between the research area of Canada and Korea to understand the shelf basin interaction across the shelf slope of the Chukchi Sea and Beaufort Gyre and its impact on the marine ecosystem in the Canada basin. Regarding the shelf basin interaction, we have detected the interannual variation of shelf water over the Chukchi shelf slope. This figure shows a vertical section of temperature and chlorophyll A in 2007 and 2016. And warm and thick warm water was found in 2017 compared with that in 2016. And chlorophyll concentration is high in the warm water, so warm water will impact a marine ecosystem in this region. In addition, the warm water shapes a patchy structure, suggesting this water is carried by the eddy. Recently, due to the sea ice loss, eddy activity is increasing, and eddy plays an important role in transport of heat, nutrients, plankton, particle, and others, so that may impact on the marine ecosystem in the basin area. So monitoring the shelf basin interaction around this region would be important. The Beaufort Gyre and its impact on marine ecosystem, we have studied the changes in ocean circulation and the resultant nutrient and phytoplankton distributions. And based on this study, water from the Siberian side and passing through the Chukchi border and influence phytoplankton distribution in the Canada basin. So our collaboration between Korea, Japan, Canada would be essential to understand the ocean circulation and its impact on the marine ecosystem in the Canada basin. We also have interested in the ice edge area because the ice edge is a unique environment conditions. So this is an example of zodiac boat survey in the ice edge area where Mirai can't approach in this region. And this is an example. The black line indicates the temperature profile, and the green is a chlorophyll A profile, and red is a diatom profile, and blue is a green algae profile. And you can see the double peak of chlorophyll A maximum, and the diatom is predominant in this region. In general, Canada basin is oligotrophic ocean, so we only found the deep chlorophyll A maximum, and small phytoplankton is predominant. But in this region, rich ecosystem starting from diatom is expected. So as for the maintenance mechanism of double chlorophyll A maximum, we have studied. This is a temporal evolution of chlorophyll A distribution at the fixed point observation station in the Canada basin. You can see the double peak of chlorophyll A maximum at 20 meter and 6 meter. And the upper one is located in the seasonal picnic line, and the lower one is located in the neutral line. And above the seasonal picnic line, fraction of sea ice meltwater is extremely large. So here is a density gap, and particle organic matter is accumulated in this region. And this may sustain the shallow chlorophyll maximum. But we don't know the origin of POC, where this POC comes from. So we will have several ice edge stations to cover the wide area of the Canada basin. So under the SAS project, we will have hydrographic survey using the research vessel Mirai, and we further approach to the ice edge area by using a small Zodiac boat, and we will have a test to deploy a underwater vehicle, and we will deploy moorings and sediment traps. And by combining these observation data to the satellite data and numerical modelings, we will understand the ocean circulation and its impact in marine ecosystem in the Canada Basin Central Arctic Ocean. Thank you.
Shige, thank you so much. And if you go ahead and unshare, I'll ask, and that way Korea can start theirs up. Are there any questions for Shige? So is this no questions?
I have a question. Do you have wave measurement in the morning?
Yeah, wave measurement. Yeah, we will deploy wave width at the ice edge area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Like I said, is there another question? I think Hangshul, are you going to be giving the presentation?
Yes, I will be.
Okay, so go ahead, and if there's any more questions, maybe put it in the chat, unless there's a burning one right now. And then we'll come back to it. So right now, Hangshul, why don't you begin your presentation?
Yeah, I lost my big screen.
I see it. I see the presentation. You just put it on full screen.
I'm still learning.
So while he's doing this, is there another question for Shige or any of the other speakers? Okay.
So regarding wave height, you also measure the direction, wave direction as well, and eye thickness as well.
We measure ice thickness using the ice profiling sonar attached to the sediment trap mooring system.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Are you ready?
I'm still fiddling.
Okay, because we see your the presentation. I think.
All right.
If you just do.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay. I will be talking mostly on planning, not much on science, and this is just a big overview of the overall Synoptic Arctic Survey transects. And this one should show you where the Korean transect is located. Basically, there will be 4 transects, and you see we are much more focused on the international waters or the Central Arctic Ocean. And we will go through Bering and Chukchi and then go further north. Then we will do some mooring here, and then we will turn left to the off Siberia coastal side. Then we will be occupying 2 ice camps for a number of days, and then we'll come down this way and do the rest. But I must say this one is not the final version. We're still thinking about it. And then when it comes to the real work, let me just differentiate between autotrophic side and heterotrophic side. For phytoplankton, we will do the typical bulk chlorophyll and phytoplankton composition. And we will be also doing phytoplankton physiology using some equipment. And then heterotrophic side, we will do all different kinds of bacterial and protozoan biology and zooplankton. We will be doing biological acoustics and doing some net samplings. And then we will be doing some marine chemistry, PCO2, dissolved inorganic carbon and dissolved organic carbon, and also net community production using argon and oxygen, and also using mass spectrometry is some of our critical, very important aspects of chemical oceanography. All right, and then the next one. just list again what we will be doing with regard to chemical oceanography. Now, this is my final slide. What we have not, what we did not manage to add is we are considering some more fish-related observation and samplings. For example, collection of ichthyoplankton or larval fish and camera-aided observation. And because we will be occupying 2 ice camps, undersea ice fish observation and also environmental DNA are the things we are considering now. But I just didn't have details to introduce for today. But we will be developing these protocols very soon. We are hoping to share this with our colleagues in a little while. And there are 2 observations I would like to make. Synoptic Arctic Survey is viewed a great source of information for policy needs, in particular recent Central Arctic Ocean Agreement. But although it is cited as a existing platform, already existing platform opportunities, but the interaction between the science group or a science for CAO agreement and SAS is not as tight as it could be or as it should be. So it'll be very worthwhile to reinforce the connection between the 2. And the second one is if I try to learn from the similar synoptic survey in the Southern Ocean, and then the protocols we use for Southern Ocean were very, very detailed and very, very well, almost prescriptive. I think it'll be very worthwhile for the rest of the period trying to develop as much as standardized protocols. Those are the 2 observations that I would like to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Hongshul. So that was your added comments were what you wanted to talk about. So you've covered that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So basically forming a email correspondence groups that may be necessary even to organize webinar.
Okay, no, good points on that. I would say while we take on any questions, why don't you de-share so that Marit can bring those up. And
this is a challenge because I lost my
no worries, I think I can do it from here.
Can you do that? All right, okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Well, Marit is going to do the talk, one of the talks. There are 2 from Norway. Are there any questions for Hongshul on what things that he mentioned in his presentation?
Yeah, this is Are. I have a question.
Good.
Right. So I looked in your list of variables that you're going to measure, and I noted you're going to measure dissolved inorganic carbon and PCO2. Would that PCO2, is that discrete in the water column or is it surface PCO2?
What sort of PCO2 did you say?
So you mentioned for dissolved, for carbon chemistry, you would measure dissolved inorganic carbon and PCO2.
Yes, that is correct.
Are the PCO2 measurements, are they discrete in the water column or are they?
No, it's continuous. It's on the way.
All right. But have you, but then for the water samples, then you only measure DIC. Is that that's my understanding, is that correct?
DIC is discrete.
Yeah. But have you, I mean, you should ideally have 2 carbon variables in order to be able to describe the entire system. So if you want to calculate
dissolved inorganic and dissolved organic, are you saying?
No, for the inorganic, you would need dissolved inorganic carbon and total alkalinity, or dissolved inorganic carbon and pH.
Yeah.
Will you do alkalinity or pH in addition to dissolved inorganic carbon?
We will be doing all of them, hoping to do all of them, but alkalinity and PCO2 and all these things will be done.
Okay, that's excellent to hear.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's another comments in here. We'll bring them up at the end. I think I'll move on to have Marit begin her presentation, and then but do bring in your questions on the chat box, and we'll bring them up towards the end. Marit, you're on.
Hello, everyone. And I would just say a few words about the Nansen Legacy project, which is an ongoing Norwegian research project. We have activities that will have a lot of synergy with the Synoptic Arctic Survey as it's planned. It's a huge group of Norwegian institutions that are part of this, and I'll just say a few words about the work which is planned for 2021, which is the most relevant in this section. And on the picture you see our new research icebreaker, Kronprins Haakon, which will be used for that work. It was new in 2018 and works very well as a research platform. The region we have chosen is the northern Barents Sea, and in 2021 we will also prolong this further into the Arctic Ocean. And the reason is that this is an area which has experienced quite a lot of sea ice loss, not only during summer but also during winter, so there are great changes in that area. And the idea of the Nansen Legacy project is to combine and relate different disciplines, including both sea ice physics and atmosphere, ocean currents, and the ecosystem, including viruses and bacteria, and up to fish and also marine mammals. So, and also geology, getting time both in the past, and there is a quite strong modeling component also leading into the future. So I think that many of the things that we will work on is relevant, and the area is from the central Barents Sea and going out into the Arctic Ocean. And the key tasks includes physical drivers like external forcing from both sea ice and water masses and atmosphere, internal forcing on the distribution of sea ice and stratification and climate history. And on human impacts, it's ocean acidification and contaminants, and also impacts from harvesting. For the ecosystem questions, it's related to characterization and quantification of the biota across different size classes and groups and habitats. It's timing of key biological processes and production across trophic levels and food web structures, including the carbon cycling. And then the modeling aspects, which is both on weather and climate and biogeochemical variability. So our main transect is seen on the map to the left. It goes from the open water in the central Barents Sea and across the shelf. There are both process studies that we are carrying on specific stations, and there are moorings which have been out for quite some time, and since 2018, and the transect will be prolonged further into the Arctic Ocean. So we will have many of the parameters which are listed as core parameters, both from the physical and chemical measurements, including the carbonate systems, and oxygen and nutrients. It's on the water column ecosystem, including process studies, and benthic measurements, including process studies, and also on sea ice communities. And our sampling protocols, they are available on the SciAS webpage for, if someone wants to look at them for the SAS protocol. It's quite a lot on the ecosystem and biology. For the confirmation of the cruise, we hope to go out in July, August next year, but there is application deadline in August this year, and the final decision won't be made until in November in 2020. Then there are potential reallocations due to the corona situation. All cruises are shut down in Norway at present, so we have some postponed cruises from this year to next. So that's still some uncertainties related to that. And our transect, as it's presented in the SAS field program, is this orange line, and it fits well and relates to the transect that Pauline presented for Oden in this August. So that will be a common transect line on the part 8 in Pauline's map. yeah, and this is the group of the Nansen Legacy. We are quite a lot of people, so we don't know yet how many additional places there will be on board, but we would be interested in making contact with other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Maren. If you would go ahead and
share. Yes, I will.
Because I need to share up the second talk with Rita. So while I'm doing that, if you would go ahead, anybody can ask Mark a question, as well as any of the others in that process. Thanks.
Hey, Marit, this is Are talking. It sounds like you have a great many people working on the ecosystem and biological sampling. So I think it would be great if we can ensure that these people are involved in the discussions on sampling protocols. That is going to happen fairly soon, which Pauline asked for. So if you can get them on board, that would be excellent.
I think we have quite a lot of people on the different topics. So I think a good idea would be if there are specific parameters, then I can allocate the protocols and the people we have. But I can make a discussion with Pauline on that.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marit.
And this is Jackie. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Are there any other questions right now? All right. So Vita, are you on?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And just tell me to advance when you're ready. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So first, I would like to thank you for taking my presentation. So I will present the contribution from IMR in Norway and PINRO, or I should rather say now the polar branch of VNIRO in Russia, and our contribution to SAS. So then you can skip to the first slide. Yes, so our contribution will be an existing ecosystem cruise that we do every year in the August-September timeframe, which we call the Joint Norwegian-Russian Ecosystem Survey. So this is really a synoptic survey of the whole Barents. So it's not the interior Arctic, which is the main focus here, but the Barents is still part of the Arctic. And I will show for the next slide later on, I will show also what Marit also just presented, the Nansen Legacy cruise that goes really into the deep Arctic as a continuation of one of the central sections that you already see in the middle of the map here that we call the Vardø North section. So we will then get a section from Norwegian coast and all the way into the Arctic when you combine the two. So, okay, what is the Norwegian-Russian Ecosystem Survey? So this is a monitoring survey where we monitor the state of the Barents Sea ecosystem to support both research, but also, and not the least, management advice on fisheries and so on. So this is a joint survey between Russia and Norway. It's coordinated. And I should also add here that all the sampling protocols are agreed upon in annual meetings between IMR and PINRO, and then they are going through the Norwegian-Russian Fisheries Commission and so on. So these are sort of what we stick to here and that we have to comply with. But I think most of them will be overlapping with what is to be done in SAS. And I should also say that we would very much like to also be part of creating the protocols for SAS, and we could probably assist some in that because we already have these protocols. So what do we measure? We measure basically everything of the ecosystem. If you look in the small figures here, we measure, of course, hydrography and also chemistry. We do plankton measurements, both phytoplankton and zooplankton. We measure zero group fish and also adult fish, pelagic and demersal fish. We do benthos measurements, and we also have people measuring, or not measuring, but monitoring seabirds and marine mammals. And in recent years, we have also started measuring marine litter and plastics and so on. Okay, so then you can go to the next slide, please. This is just very short what Marit already mentioned, that we have the Nansen Legacy cruise. And now you can see that the red line is the Nansen Legacy line, which is basically a continuation of a section that is also covered by this ecosystem cruise. So then we will get the continuous from the Barents and into the open ocean. So, okay, the last slide, please. This is just a short summary of the first slide, basically. And as I said, we have an established joint protocol between IMR and PINRO that is agreed upon in the Norwegian-Russian Fisheries Commission. But I think it's mostly overlapping with SAS protocol, certainly for the physical and chemical parameters. For the biology, as I said, we would like to take part of this and see what we can contribute to that. So for the parameters we measure, as I said, we cover most of the ecosystem. So the standard physical parameters from the CTD. We have a fair bit of chemistry parameters, nutrients, and also phytoplankton, chlorophyll, and zooplankton on various sizes. We measure fish, both zero group and pelagic and demersal, and marine mammals and seabirds, and also the benthic measurements. So I think we cover quite a lot of the core measurements that are planned for the SAS. Maybe not all of them, but I think we cover quite a lot of them. So that was in quite short what I wanted to present from our side. So now I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to change over to, because I'll give the talk, have a download also from China. So if you would, anybody want to ask Vida a question or any of the other speakers, please do so. And if you would, I'm talking to myself.
I have a question for Vida. So Vida, I think at some point there was some discussion about including eDNA in the sampling. Do you have any updates on that, or are you not going to do it, or are you planning to do it, or what's the status?
I don't have the status there, so I will have to check that. But thank you for reminding me about it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I have a question. I mean, it seems to me from the presentation so far that for the time tracers, that is SF6 and CFC12, which are hugely important for determining ventilation of the ocean and also anthropogenic carbon, it was only explicitly mentioned for the Oden cruise. But are there any other people who have plans to make these kind of measurements?
We do in Dave Strait.
Yeah, okay, of course, yeah. It seems to me it would be worthwhile to think about getting those kind of measurements on board on more of the cruises.
Sorry, folks, I've got everybody's talk but my own. And Jiafeng said that he was, I don't see it sitting in my Dropbox, so I'm going to get it real fast. So in the meantime, keep the discussion. Is Jiafeng on the line?
Yes.
Yes. Why don't you go ahead and share your talk, can you? And go ahead and present.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just give you a brief introduction of the Chinese contribution to SAS and this year. And this year in 2020, and we will have Shulong 2 to go to the Arctic. This is a very new is a new icebreaker, and we will just finished the test cruise to the Antarctic. So this is the first time to the Arctic, and and this year for the January, 11 legs, and legs 1 and 2 is just to support the mosaic, and leg 3, so it's from the 23rd August to the September, the end of September. So this is the opening cruise, and it's from the Kirkenes and to the Central Arctic, through the Central Arctic Ocean and back to China. So there are 2 main tests. The first is to carry out the Gyre 2020 project. So this is the opening cruise, and also to support SAS. So for the Gyre 2020 project, I will not give you the details because there will be also another presentation just following this workshop. So if you have interest, you can just join it. And for the support of SAS, I think we can have 3 transects. The first is just along the mid-ocean ridge in the Atlantic Arctic, and then just go to the Chukchi bordering area. This is a second transect, and then is a transect just through from the Chukchi bordering area to the Bering Strait. So this is the long-term monitoring transect. And because the period, the time, the implementation time is just depending on the Gyre project. So for the ecosystem implementation, the time is limited. So we will have about 10 CD stations along the trucks, and also about 20 or even more XCD stations. And another for the underlying water, so it's for the automatic weather stations, and from an ocean pack, we can just get the data of the temperature, salinity, chlorophyll, the PCO2, and nutrients, and etc. And also we will have aerosol suffering along the track. So these figures show the moon pools on the Shulong 2, and we have a test in the Southern Ocean, and it works very well. And we also have a plan to deployment of some ice buoys, but for the range and the numbers, it depends on the time. And we have also have some data. It's in this area. There's the transect, and it's in the 2017, and during the January 8. We can show here from the figures, the Atlantic waters just is from the Atlantic Pacific to the Atlantic Arctic to the Pacific Arctic. So it's become deeper and cooler. Yeah, just a very brief introduction. And I think during the 2021 and the January can give more contribution to the SAS. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Could you go ahead, Xiafeng, and de-share your presentation?
Okay.
And I'll bring mine
Okay.
up. I don't know what happened there, but anyway, I have it now. So. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, let me start this up. All right, so I briefly want to give you an update on the 2020 cruise. Oh shoot, I brought the wrong one up. I'm sorry, wrong meeting. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Oh Lord. Can one of the people in the or bring it up from the Dropbox, because it's sitting in the Dropbox for the SAS Dropbox, because I don't see it on mine here.
I'll take a look for it, Jackie.
Yeah, if you would, it should be sitting in there. I just did the mistake. Sorry, folks. If you can find it, otherwise, if there's any other questions that want to go on until I resolve this issue. Can you see it in there? You got it? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about this. So everybody can see that. If you could put it, yeah, excellent. So I'll just go ahead and say advanced slide as we go forward. So this is sitting in the Dropbox, just to let you know. And also the presentation by Gia Feng and the one from Bill Williams will be in there after our talk today. So this is just an update on where we are with the workshop, the contribution of the US to the SAS, and we can go forward. And what you're seeing are the names of the authors of the people on the US Science Steering Committee. Next. I think we've gone through, most of us, we know about the sea ice change in the opening of the Central Arctic Ocean. The importance not only in the ecosystem level, but for the transportation. We've had discussions about the fisheries, but we also have an opening for the military use. And I have given a presentation on the SAS and our Arctic domain awareness related to some of the classified and unclassified. Obviously, I was unclassified and presented that. And there you'll see there was a particular interest by the folks at that meeting from various branches of the U.S. Military and organizations to particularly in the work on the physical oceanography. The Synoptic Arctic Survey we know is bottom up and it's pan-Arctic and multi-ship. Next. All right, so this has already been, Arvin mentioned this. This is the article from the SAS, from the EOS, and the Odin and the Russian ship on the left. The yellow colors on the upper right are fishable depth outside the international borders, and that's of interest in that Central Arctic Ocean fisheries agreement. And then on the lower right is just some of the increasing CO2, which we know in the opening of the Arctic Ocean. Next. So it's an international research-driven initiative. You can see all the flags and the organizations that have been involved in the development of this. Next. So there are three kind of core parts of the SAS to look at the present state of the Arctic Ocean, and three foci. The physical drivers, and we've been hearing about that today, but also the importance of them onto the ecosystem, the drivers on the ecosystem response, as well as carbon cycling. And the envision that these would be repeated internationally as pan-Arctic every decade, but that envisioned also that every year that there would be regional occupations by different countries as part of their national programs. Next. So we held a meeting funded by the National Science Foundation and individual organizations of the participants. And then we had early career support from IS as a cross-cutting proposal. This was held in May of 15-16 last year. We had 59 participants, 19 of them internationally. And we particularly wanted to engage early career scientists, and you can see the statistics there of having the 17. We had 9 postdocs. We had folks from This is the support for those, both US and internationally. We also held at a science steering committee, 6 of the 7 members, and also 7 of the international steering committee members. And as Arden said, on the final day after the workshop, we then had a international steering committee member discussions about the workshop and how to move the program forward. We also had a participant by an indigenous participant. It was also an early career scientist. We had 12 workshop goals. I don't need to go through all of them for this purposes, but the main thing to recognize is that we were talking also about missing gaps in research questions or where parameters, the data management, how to really build the next generation or maintain the next generation of early career scientists. We developed both discussions on planned transect, and you've seen the map in some of the presentations. We also talked about non-ship assets, and that would be the satellite, the glider information, under ice, even the Office of Naval Research on the US side, the submarine operations going in the Central Arctic, to have have cross interagencies activities and potential for data sharing. We also wanted to talk about the cross collaboration between ships and then outreach activities. Next. So some of the recommendations, and there is a report out. I'll give you the links for that. I also have hard copies that I was going to bring to Iceland or Tokyo, both meetings, of course, that were canceled but are online. If you email me afterwards, I'd be happy to, once we get back to work, to send you that hard copy because they're in my boxes in the office. But you can download a PDF. So that we looked at the core parameters for the 3 areas. We tried to focus in more that we saw that needed to be added. We were interested in the spatial and temporal scales of sampling. We had discussions. We had breakout groups during the workshop. The importance of having meteorological, topographical, and gravity measurements that came up too. And depending on the vessel, these activities can be undertaken in the science programs. We did talk about the importance of data management and where the data would be stored. They're going to be stored internationally and cross-linked. So this brings in talking at some of the data programs that are going on with SAON, the Study of Arctic Observing Network, or other observing international level to make sure we can connect with these data sets. We did bring up more of the modeling and the importance of this data, particularly in between the decadal surveys, that it provides the spatial and temporal context for the studies. And we also outlined synthesis activities that are necessary and the importance also to talk to both the local and indigenous communities in the Arctic. Next. So one of this, what we came out on this is the International Essential Ocean Variables, and on the left is a box. The asterisks next to the parameters that came down were ones that we actually put into a proposal for our NSF for US national support to use the Healy. And you can see the physical measurements. They do include meteorological measurements, Michael, as well as other seafloor depth, gravitometry, magnetometry possibilities. Biochemistry, you can see the list of measurements, also SAS ones, and then the ecosystem going from the viruses up to with observations of marine mammals and seabirds, and some more detail on these measurements. So we took the core SAS and then added on some core measurements that would be done in addition. We had our goal to standardize and select the variable SAS with the different cruises. We added this atmospheric and satellite more explicitly. We submitted as a steering committee for the SAS on the US side. And if it is successful, that we would open the ship up for half of it for additional proposals, both US and internationally, to expand on the essential ocean variable list there. And we have recommended this to be part of the US Interagency, Multi-Agency Research Policy Committee, and have made presentations, and those are available on the website for IARPC. Next. So this is the map you've all seen. We put this together. This would be probably as we go through this summer and move into the fall will be updated. But I would just want to go from clockwise. We've already had presentations from Korea, China, and Japan on the activities here. Canada and outlining some of the US. We have the Pacific DBO here. We have the Atlantic DBO in development. We have discussions in Baffin Bay. So there are shelf programs. And in fact, I know 4 Russian cruises on the shelf that have interest in the SAS. These are what we're going to develop a map like this to add on the shelf programs that we know. So you'll be, I think folks will be seeing an email about making sure we have those listed on a subsequent map. So we've had this presentation already on this workshop. We then had the Healy, as we said, Xie Feng already spoke about that. We had some presentations today about ongoing Russian potential cruises this summer already. Marit and others have mentioned about Norway. And then we go around from pending around into the Baffin Bay area. We've had some presentations of our Canadian colleagues about that. And swinging back here, the US component, if it goes, would be to go to the pole in 2021 and occupy 2 different transects that are historical. Next. So to give you that idea, on the left are historic summer stations into the Canada Basin that were done by various programs such as the T3, the Shelf Basin Interaction, SHIBA, Geotracers, and the Hidden Ocean, which was a biodiversity program under NOAA. And then this was the planned activity that the US would do if successful, and there would be long and short stations on this. So some of these would be rapid measurements on the shelf into the basin, but other ones they will have components, and a subset of these will be benthic measurements, limited, and also plan to have as many of the core SAS parameters that we can. Next. So the timeline of events, if we move forward, and regardless, we need to have a pre-cruise workshop would be in Woods Hole. We would do a PAG meeting that is planned for fall of 2020 will be an important one to not only discuss findings from the SAS activities in 2020, but to have some pre-planning discussions for 2021. Bill Williams will, Xie Feng is the chair of the Pacific Arctic Group now, and then it will change over to Bill Williams in Canada this fall, the end of that meeting, a planning Healy meeting. And then we'd like to really punch out on the SAS results and plans at the Lisbon meeting at ASSW2021, then the cruise, and then another fall meeting, and you can see the sequence as we move forward. Internationally, we would do ASSW in Norway in 2022. And then at the end, we're also planning to have, I think this date is supposed to be 2022, not 2020, for a large synthesis workshop for SAS activities. Next. So this is just to conclude here. This is the International Science Steering Committee. Arvind is the chair here. You can see the names and the countries. We are looking to finalize a Russian colleague on this, or 2 for being on that steering committee. I think most of this we're going to do in the next couple months will be obviously virtual. And this is our US steering committee with Karen, who's sitting on Mosaic doing sampling. And so I'm taking, representing her on these presentations and discussions. Seth Danielson from UAF, and Mary Louise Timmons from Yale, and Nick Bates from Bermuda, Lori Juranek, Oregon State, and Cindy Pilskin from University of Massachusetts. So that is the kind of the steering committee and discussions we're planning to have. By the emails I've seen on the international level is to build out and have discussions of more detail about the protocols. And I will put together a matrix of the different cruises and measurements, and we can share that. Next. So that is the conclusion of my presentation here. 2 things I'd point out. This is the international, and I think Arvind will give us their. Not very nice to hear that they will have some support to maintain an international SAS web-based office. But I also point out this is the Woods Hole link, and it has both the International Science Plan, the Woods Hole workshop report, as well as the meetings from the minutes, and including the EOS article. So at that point, I would say I am done, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and we can also field, if anybody's specific to me, 1 or 2, and then open the remainder of the time we have to discussion. So, any comments, questions?
Hi.
Yeah, I see, I see you're mentioning about wave height and
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, wave height and direction, propagation direction, and at the same time the eye thickness. Well, even current at the same time, AWACS can do it. Oh.
Okay.
So I think that is very important because the transportation need and also the nowcast forecast system we also need it too. And we start to implement our long-going research model to the nowcast forecast system in this fiscal year. I hope will be put online at the end of this year, and to forecast ice and ocean circulation conditions along the Northeast Passage area, along Siberia, Chukchi, East Siberian, and Letap Sea, and hopefully all the way to the Barents Sea. So I think wave there is very important along the coast, even along the other coast sea of the Arctic. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gia. I would point out in the chat box, I think this should be brought forward in the discussions at the national and international level. I would just point out that I've heard privately from Italy that they don't have the concrete plans yet, but they're very interested in the SAS, particularly in the importance of putting meteorological measurements in there. And I just want to bring that forward in there. There is a question as when we might know about the US plan. That's up into the hands of our agency funding right now. So there's no word. As soon as we find out one way or the other, there will be a broadcast letter sent out to the community, because there's a lot of action items that are behind that if we are successful. But right now, the uncertainty with the COVID-19 and also, the impacts of, but I know the panels are going forward. The only thing I can say is that it's still under review and a decision has not been made, but we are prepared to share parts and move forward on that very quickly. And now that we're all virtual, you'll be hearing about it. We might, we'll broadcast that out as soon as we know. There is interest on multi-agency interest in this, particularly by NOAA folks about having some type of larval fishery on our planned cruise on the NOAA Fairweather. We'll be doing that just to let everybody know, as well as epibenthos, but we will be doing some type of a midwater and bottom, not major fisheries, but more science oriented. And so that will be something that will be discussed. Franz Mutter used an under ice, and his presentation is on the US IARPIC, which is the Interagency Arctic Research Policy Committee. If you Google it, you can join the Marine Working Ecosystem Collaborative Team that I co-chair, and you can see what Franz and anything, some of the directions at the SAS at the US level are going. Let's see. Oh, Hongshou wanted to know how we can continue discussions from here and now before we meet together in the fall, and I open that up to the floor. I would just say that I know that there's discussions going on at the International SAS to have some of these virtual webinars on, particularly on the protocols. And so we can have a discussion on how we might move this forward via webinars, because there's a lot of interesting information, discussions, and going into the field still this summer. So that's all I would add to it. Anything else?
I'd like to point out one thing, because NOAA is right now turn to ask us to transition our research into forecast. So this is why NOAA CPO increased my funding, led my group to develop the nowcast forecast system. And I hope this is not only for my group. I hope to work with the entire Arctic community, and we can develop the coastal forecast system using, I think, state of the art. For example, we implement the landfast ice and also implement the wave ice interaction. We already finished how ice attenuate the wave height and delete. And then we are working on how the wave break the ice and also cause mixing to the ice and also to the water column.
All right, Gia, thank you. I think, and it's good you put this in the chat box as well as others. Michael mentioned again the importance of the atmospheric soundings and looking at vertical structure. And so that has been on the chat box. I'm going to make a copy of the chat box for all of the comments that have coming forward, and we can put this in the minutes from this meeting. There's also, I know, some comments. Lisa Broder put out a note saying that they may have a campaign in the Beaufort Sea in which they would do many of the SAS key parameters. And so she was asking about data synthesis and the different field efforts. This also, I think, needs to be discussed within our protocol developments. We talk about it. We have to have national data archiving, but we need to connect it at the international level. So that's still, I think, our colleagues going first out in the field. That's why they're anxious to get some of these core protocols out there, and we need to put something as a data management protocol. And I think that's something as a action for the International Steering Committee. And let's see. The question, another one, Tori is saying that many of the cruises are reoccurring. Are there plans to generate SAS-like data compilations? Yeah, the answer is yes. The plan of SAS, the national programs would be continuing. A lot of the data sets are going to be generated post these cruises in 2021. And they will be the basis, in fact, for a lot of the activities and modeling that will go on that will help then facilitate and focus the next round in the 2031 period. But I imagine and I would hope that the national programs shared internationally as possible will have subsets of the SAS going on with all the changes we have seen. Are there any other questions or comments? Because I think we're 2 minutes over.
Oh,
okay, Pauline.
Can I say something? Yes. Back to the protocols, of course. I think it is really, really very important that we start as soon as possible. And I would like to propose that that centrally, maybe you and Eivind and some people make some kind of system that the principal, the chief scientists can make, like this person can work on chlorophyll A, and that person then connects to 4 or 5 others, and then they look at those Nansen protocols and the IMR Pinero protocols and the mosaic protocols, and then they make a synthesis of that, what they think is best, and that we can discuss. Because I have been in so many mosaic meetings, and then everybody says, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but there is no substance, you know? I don't want to spend a lot of time on webinars just discussing that we're going to do something. No, I want something on the table that we can discuss. Okay, shall we use ethanol or methanol or acetone or something else?
Right, well, that's why I would think that we would have a Dropbox that people that different cruises can put those protocols in, people review them, and then we have a webinar. You're right, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
But we need to put out a blanket email that says, here's the Dropbox, and I'll try to set one up. Here, you the leads, feather out to the people that are doing those measurements on your cruises, stick your protocols in the Dropbox by country, let's say, or by cruise. We review them, and then we say, okay, we're gonna have a webinar to come up with a standard protocol.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest you make directories for each of the SAS parameters. I mean, you don't need to do it maybe for chemistry, but for biology, it's very important. Like that you have somewhere, okay, 13C. And then people put their methods there, and then we compile them. I mean, for setting up
good point.
It should be per core parameter.
Yeah, and I mean, it can be started with the SAS core parameters, and then there's going to be branching out, and there'll be more detail by countries, but we can start with the core.
Yes, and I mean, we do have the Nansen and we do have the mosaic, and so it is not as much work as you think, but it needs organizing.
It needs a team lead, I know.
Yes.
So yeah, I'll try to at least start this on the biology. I don't know that I can maintain it, but I'll try to I have that on my action item. First, well, I think the matrix part to figure out who's collecting what where of the core, and then we set up this Dropbox. It's not going to happen today, but it'll happen. Hopefully, I'll work on it this week.
Yes.
Monday.
Great. Yes. And then there should also be some discussion or some directory for I-score sampling. How are we going to chop up the I-scores? I mean, it has to be decided now. I mean, not now, but within a few months.
Well, I guess I'll let Orvin step in, but to me, I would say that we should have that discussion. Some of those measurements are, you know, how many of the ships are actually going to be doing that, and then that would be the sub team to make that part. But I think I would ask that maybe, Orvin, we have some type of a international telnet discussion about some of the issues that were brought up in this meeting, so we can move forward, and it needs to be done sooner than later. And I know the protocol one, you know, because you initiated this, and I'm going to go back that he's going to work on developing that. So I think before it gets broadcast to everybody, we'll try to have a smaller group work on it, set up a framework, and then say, ask people, okay, please do this, this, and this.
Yeah, good. Good.
Okay.
I just want to, I think that's a good idea, and I think that's something that we can follow up on, and I'm happy to help out with that as well.
Excellent, thanks. So I think we're now 6 minutes over. Is there any other questions that people have or comments? Otherwise, I think it's time to let this line close and to have our two technical folks. I want to thank both of them for their efforts on this and facilitating discussion, and all of you that stayed online and made great presentations. So with that, unless anybody raises their hand or like this or says something right now, I would say we'll close the meeting in 1 minute. Does anybody have any final comments?
Yeah, thank you for being such a good chair.
Oh.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I think at that point, and thank you so much. The recording, I do have a question. Will the recording go on to the Dropbox or on the main ASSW site?
That's a great question. I think it's going to go onto the main site, and we'll also archive the group chat so you can access that later as well.
Excellent. And so that'll go on the main site, and they'll probably go on the main SSW, and then will that link to the presentations that are sitting in the Dropbox? You know?
That I'm not sure, and that might be up to you to distribute, but you can coordinate probably with Federica.
Sure, I will do that, and I would just say right now those are up in the Dropbox. They stay there. I think they're closing anything additional in the Dropbox on the 3rd. So if people want to look at it, you can download them. If anybody has a problem, you better tell me right now, because having your presentations, because they are available to everybody sitting in that Dropbox. And if you want to update it, let me know. You can't actually do anything with it. I control the Dropbox with Alan. So if you have anything related, just send me a post note. Otherwise, well, those will be available. And we might actually link them to this agenda if I update it. I know they did that to the Marine Working Group. That way, if you get the agenda, you can click on it. That's as much as I know right now. Okay. I want to thank you all, everybody who has stayed on, all your presentations. Success to cruise planning. Good luck. Keep healthy.
Be safe.
Thank
Thanks
you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.